Hello there, this is Dr. Samurai, a professor in Japan specializing in international social pathology. And this is my diploma with which I teach at the university in Japan. The topic of my minute lecture today is Mr. Mao Zedong. He was born in 1893. Mao Zedong was a Chinese communist revolutionary, and he succeeded in realizing it. And he is the founding father of the People's Republic of China, CCP. Ideologically, he is Marxist-Leninist, as the Stalin was. However, in practice of politics and military, his theory is called Maoism. So, as it was with Stalin, on one hand, Mao respected Lenin, but on the other hand, in practice, he did what he himself wanted to do, naming it as Maoism. Okay? And I would like to enter into the analysis of Mr. Mao Zedong. Mao was the third boy of 5 brothers. However, his first and second brother died in their early infancy. So Mao was pretty much treated as the family's oldest brother. His father was originally from a very poor peasant, but he climbed up to become a wealthy landlord only by his talent. At the same time, he was very strict disciplinarian and used corporal punishment on the 3 child very easily. And it is said Mao didn't like his father and was always rebellious to what he orders. On the other hand, his mother was a highly pious Buddhist and is said to try to block her husband's violence on his children. However, as you can imagine the word pious, she was deeply into Buddhism since Mao was still very young, and Mao, at the age of 8, was sent to an elementary school away from his home. Okay, so father was abusive, mother loved him, but it must have been not too deep, and also cut short because he was sent away at age 8. Emotionally shallow basis with father's aggression. Okay, from my experiences, I now believe true psychopath, which is an emotional handicap, is caused by major oppressive pressure within the family and almost no non-existent break by the other parents. Understand? Uncontrollable, massive pressure in a family with very little other counterpart power. And this combination seems to produce high-level psychopath. Because this combination, the child cannot have warm physical touch, two-way communications based on love and filled with emotion. All he has is unreasonable, aggressive pressure, okay? So no chance of developing his emotion within the family. And as I have said before, once you miss that critical period, later love doesn't mean much to fix his basic personality. This is a kind of side information, but when you are exposed to high pressure constantly, the stress hormone called cortisol is always up. When cortisol is always up, the other emotions have no opportunity to grow because this stress hormone filled the mental space in which those warmness and things like that usually grow. So psychopath is said to not have empathy, guilt, and regret. They don't have, because there's no chance to feel he is sorry, because he was always exposed to external pressure. and high stress all the time in his mind. Okay? Instead, in order to avoid that high pressure, which is continuous, he must learn how to lie. So, real psychopath is pathological liars and also hold constant aggression deeply imprinted inside himself, because you are under attack all the time. So of course you feel you want to pay back, right? That's the aggression. And Mao is said to have loved spending time alone without dealing with others, and he loved reading books. Does this make sense? Strict disciplinarian father. Mother, although a bit protective, pays most of her attention to Buddhism. So her attention is this way. Father gives massive pressure all the time. Because of that, he maintained stress hormone always high, with no chance to communicate and have a physical attachment with others. So he didn't like to be with others. He just loved to be alone reading books. Makes sense, right? Okay. A writer named Yun Qian wrote a book about Mao Zedong, whom nobody knew before. In her book, there are some very interesting points, so I would like to go one by one very quickly, okay? Because his mother loved but didn't get into too deep into his, teaching what's right and what's wrong. All Mao cared about is eating a lot and reading a book without walking. He also didn't care about his clothing and loved what he enjoys only, okay? This, we have to be very careful. Although most of the descriptions say his mother loved Mao, which I think was true, but it stopped halfway, I believe, and her major interest was into Buddhism. She loved him, but probably she didn't get too deeply into Mao's education. So it was kind of irresponsible love. Whatever he says, she says yes, because her major interest was into Buddhism, I think. So he ate a lot and always alone reading books, not working, okay? And also, the book says Mao was more cruel, hedonist. And she says Mr. Mao was not interested in communism at all. She continues, he was absolutely self-centered and irresponsible. He himself clearly said everything exists for him, and all he is responsible for is for himself and for his interests only. He said he loved riots and destruction because long, peaceful life is boring, and he prefers the life filled with dramatic changes keep happening on and on and on. And listen to this very carefully. He said the death is the most wonderful thing, which brings in unexpected radical changes. And people's death is not a problem at all. We should rather celebrate it. He said we should rather celebrate people's death, because death is the most wonderful thing that brings changes. However, he spent a lot of energy to avoid his own death to a pathological level. And this is a famous episode. When his mother was dying, he said to his mother, I just would like to keep your beautiful image. So please let me leave you now so that I can maintain your beautiful image in my mind. And her mother said, yes, you may. So from this episode, for whatever reason, his mother avoided communicating deeply and emotionally with his son. It was always superficial, and she okayed everything he says. So her love towards his son seemed to be superficial love, which was very shallow. That doesn't have anything substantial to form Mr. Mao's personality. Shallow love from his mother doesn't have much on his personality. And Mao said he loved distractions, and he re-emphasized it again and again and again. That said, Mao Zedong was an emotionally very shallow person, only saw the surface of what was going on, and always positive and optimistic psychologically, no matter what kind of atrocious scenes he faces. His father and theological school gave him massive pressure, and the mother was always halfway loving. So he needed to avoid that massive pressure by pathological lying with constant aggression inside. That made him love distractions and death. So, in terms of the level of psychopathy, I think Mr. Mao is this level and Stalin is this level. Stalin developed suspicions, while Mr. Mao never developed suspicions. He always enjoyed distractions, and he himself was happy playing with young girls even when riots are happening and people are dying in his own country. So, in a nutshell, we can conclude that the major dynamics in his early childhood, including the critical period, was massive pressure and aggression from his father, plus only halfway protection and love from his mother, not paying attention to him. Because of this, he is completely self-centered. His interest was only in himself, so what he cared about was hedonistic pleasure, himself, irresponsible. He loved riots and distractions, which is an expression of his inner aggression. And most of all, as was with Hitler, he loved death, and he loved killing, and probably he loved dead bodies, because he could not establish ties with living human beings. I repeat, because of the constant high pressure from his father and shallow love from his mother that did not develop his emotion, he was like an inorganic thing. So he loved being alone without others. Rather, he felt more comfortable with what is similar to him: inorganic death, dead bodies, and killing people. That's why he said death of the people are not a problem, but rather what we should celebrate. I repeat, he himself said death is what we should celebrate, while he was highly interested in protecting his own life. Okay? So it is like when a person misses chances of developing attachment with other living human beings during a critical period, the person would be more like an inorganic thing, not loving living human beings, and rather loving dead people. This is what happened with Mr. Mao and Mr. Hitler, and probably Mr. Stalin, who said killing one person is a crime, but killing innumerable number of people is just statistics. What is common among these three people is their attachment to their mother. Thus, other living human beings is very shallow.